He thought it was just another parent-teacher meeting, until the principal slid a folder across the table and said words that froze the entire room. "Mr. Grant, your son failed every single exam again. At this rate, he won't graduate." What he didn't know was that the person who would save his son's future wasn't another expensive tutor or some elite consultant, but the quiet maid's daughter who cleaned their house on weekends and who carried one secret that would change everything. You're about to hear the story of a boy who had everything money could buy, except the one thing everybody assumed he automatically had: success. And how a girl who had almost nothing, who studied at a small public school and shared a room with her mom, ended up teaching him the one secret that rich people often overlook. If you've ever looked at someone's life online and thought, they must have it so easy, this story might surprise you. But before we go, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. Thank you. Let's begin. The story starts in a glass mansion that looked like something out of a movie. Floor-to-ceiling windows, a pool that wrapped around the house, a driveway big enough to park 20 cars, even though there were usually only 3, a black luxury SUV, a silver sports car that roared like a lion, and sometimes a sleek sedan that belonged to drivers or visitors. Inside that mansion lived Alexander Grant, a billionaire investor who turned tech companies into gold. People online called him the Midas of Wall Street. Business magazines loved him. Employees feared him. Politicians invited him to fancy dinners. And then there was his 16-year-old son, Leo. On paper, Leo was the kind of kid everyone envied. Private school, designer clothes, brand new gadgets when other kids were still begging for last year's version. He had a bedroom bigger than some people's entire apartments, and a game room that looked like a mini arcade. But if you walked into his prestigious school, Harrington Academy, and asked the teachers about Leo Grant, you wouldn't hear the words brilliant or talented. You'd hear struggling, unfocused, failure to meet expectations. It wasn't just one subject. It was almost all of them. Math tests, failing. Science quizzes, failing. History essays, barely scraping by. What stung the most was that everyone assumed the opposite. "You're Alexander Grant's son," people would say. "You must be naturally smart." They didn't see Leo sitting alone in his room at 2 a.m., staring at a textbook that might as well have been written in another language. They didn't see him trying to memorize pages and pages, only to forget everything the next morning. They didn't see his heart pounding every time the teacher turned papers face down and walked up and down the rows to return them. They only saw the red marks, the FS, the comments, "You can do better. See me after class." This is not acceptable. Now, in that same mansion, there was someone else whose name the world didn't know: Rosa. Rosa was the maid. She had worked for the Grants for 6 years. She was quiet, respectful, always moving in the background like a shadow, dusting shelves, folding clothes, picking up the pieces of a life she would never fully be part of. Rosa didn't live in the mansion. Every morning, a small blue bus brought her from a crowded neighborhood across town to the gates of the Glass Palace. At the end of the day, it took her back. But on weekends, there was someone who sometimes came with her. Her 15-year-old daughter, Maya. Maya helped her mom when things got too busy. She polished silverware, straightened up books, and sometimes watered the plants outside. She wore simple clothes, carried an old backpack, and kept her eyes down when Mr. Grant or any of his guests walked through the halls. At least, that's what people thought she was like. In reality, Maya's eyes missed nothing. She noticed the stack of unopened textbooks on Leo's desk. She noticed the test papers with red marks thrown into the trash. She noticed the defeated way he'd slump into his chair, headphones on, pretending he didn't care. Because you see, while Leo was drowning in a sea of failing grades at an elite academy, Maya was at the top of her class in a public school that didn't even have enough chairs for all its students. She studied under a flickering bulb in a small room she shared with her mom. No private tutor, no high-speed Wi-Fi at home. Sometimes, no electricity. But she had something else, a system, a secret. The secret you're going to hear about. Before that disastrous meeting with the principal, life followed a pattern. On weekdays, Leo woke up to an alarm he kept snoozing. The driver took him to school in the black SUV. He walked past marble pillars, a huge crest on the wall, and students in crisp uniforms. He sat in classes where teachers talked fast and expected everyone to keep up. He spent lunch with two kinds of people: those who stuck around him because of his last name, those who enjoyed making fun of him because he wasn't living up to it. One of them was a boy named Ethan Blackwell. Ethan was everything teachers loved on the surface: top grades, well-spoken, parents who donated to the school. But there was something cold in his eyes, something calculating. He loved joking loudly about how even billionaires produced defective products sometimes. While glancing at Leo, his friends laughed. Leo pretended it didn't bother him. "Relax, dude, it's just banter," Ethan would say, clapping him on the back. Nothing personal. But it was personal. Every single time. At home, evenings looked like this. Rosa cleaning quietly, Maya dusting bookshelves, Mr. Grant on a call, pacing his office, talking about millions and mergers. Leo in his room, a textbook open in front of him, his phone glowing beside it. Sometimes, Mr. Grant would appear in the doorway. "How are your grades?" he'd ask, not really looking at his son, eyes still on his phone. "Fine," Leo would lie. "Good. Keep them that way," his father would answer, before disappearing back into emails and deals. They were two people living in the same house, but in two different worlds. The real explosion started with a single envelope. On a Wednesday afternoon, Leo walked into his math class already feeling sick. The test they had taken last week had been brutal, and he knew, deep down, that he hadn't done well. The teacher, Mr. Collins, stood at the front of the class, holding a stack of papers. "Some of you did very well," he said. "Some of you will need to think carefully about your priorities. You know when your name is coming. You feel it. Leo Grant." It felt like the whole room turned to look at him. He walked up slowly, took the paper, and saw it. 27%. A big, bold, angry red 27 at the top. Underneath, scribbled in the teacher's handwriting, "See me after class." Ethan's voice cut through the silence. "Ouch." A few kids snickered. Leo tried to smile like he didn't care, folded the paper, and shoved it into his bag. But inside, his chest felt tight. After class, Mr. Collins didn't shout. That almost made it worse. "Leo," he said, removing his glasses and rubbing the bridge of his nose, "this is the third major test you failed this term." "I know," Leo muttered. "You're a smart boy. I've seen you ask good questions in class. But your work doesn't show it. What's going on?" I don't get it," Leo admitted, quietly. "I study. I try. But when I sit down for the test, it's like my mind just empties." Mr. Collins sighed. "Your father will have to be informed. We can't ignore this anymore. Your GPA is at risk. Graduation is at risk." That word echoed in his ears. Risk. Risk of what? Risk of being the failure son of the successful father. Risk of being the joke. Risk of being the story people whispered about at dinners. That afternoon, an email went out from the school to Alexander Grant. It said things like urgent, academic performance, and mandatory parent-teacher meeting. Leo didn't see the email, but he felt the storm gathering long before it reached the house. That night, Leo sat on his bed, the failed math test beside him. He stared at the 27% like it was a sentence. He thought back to when school used to feel simple. When his mom was still alive, she would sit with him at the kitchen table, turning math problems into games, science into stories. She made him feel like learning was an adventure, but she'd gotten sick when he was 11, gone by the time he was 12. After that, the house got bigger and quieter. His dad got busier. Tutors came and went, talking in complicated language, rushing through material like they were paid per chapter. If he didn't understand something, they'd say, "Just practice more." If he asked them to slow down, they'd sigh or glance at the clock. Slowly, Leo started to believe something ugly. Maybe I'm just dumb. Once the thought moved in, it didn't want to leave. So he reacted the way a lot of teens do. He pretended he didn't care. Better to be lazy than to try your absolute best and still fail. Better to act like school is stupid than admit it scares you. In his head, the war sounded like this. You have every advantage. You should be top of the class. What's wrong with you? If you keep failing, everyone will know you're not like your dad. What if your dad gives up on you? He wanted to tell someone. But who? His dad, who measured everything in results and numbers. His classmates, who already expected him to fall behind. The tutors, who only saw him as another client. That night, as he lay awake, he heard something through his half-open door. Muffled voices, soft laughter, the clink of dishes. Rosa and Maya were cleaning up the kitchen, while Leo drowned in silent pressure. Maya swam in a different kind. At her school, there were too many students and not enough teachers. Desks were old. Textbooks were outdated. Sometimes, the chalk broke in the teacher's hand and there wasn't more. And yet, in that environment, she was thriving. Why? Because failure, to her, meant something else. Failure meant, we try again. Failure meant, okay, what did I miss? Failure meant, this is just a step, not the end. Her mom had taught her that. Listen, Hija, Rosa would say. We don't have the luxury of giving up. If you want to leave this life, you must learn how to fall and stand again. That is our superpower. So Maya developed her own secret method. She didn't memorize blindly. She broke topics into pieces. She taught them to her mom aloud. She turned formulas into stories. She drew diagrams on scrap cardboard. She made voice recordings of herself explaining things and played them on the bus. She didn't call it a learning system. She just called it surviving. And that system was about to collide with Leo's world. It happened on a Saturday morning. Leo had been grounded, not from going out, but from what he cared about most, his games, his phone, his social media. His dad thought this would motivate him. Until your grades improve, you're on academic lockdown, Alexander said, standing in Leo's doorway with his arms crossed. You will be studying this weekend. With what? Leo murmured after his father left. My brain. By late morning, he had textbooks open but nothing going in. His eyes kept sliding over the words. Downstairs, Rosa and Maya arrived for weekend cleaning. As they moved quietly through the halls, Maya passed by Leo's room. The door was slightly open. She glanced inside. She saw him sitting at his desk, staring at a page like it had personally insulted him. On the floor beside the trash bin, she noticed a crumpled paper with red ink. She kept walking. It wasn't her business. But after she finished dusting the bookshelves in the hallway, her curiosity nagged at her. She'd seen too many test papers in that trash lately. On her way back, she saw Leo again, still in the same position. And this time, he saw her, too. Their eyes met for half a second. He quickly looked away, embarrassed. I'm sorry, he muttered, as if him existing in his own room was something to apologize for. Maya hesitated. You don't have to say sorry, sir. He winced. Please don't call me sir. I'm only 1 year older than you. She gave a small smile. Okay, Leo, then. There was an awkward silence. Her eyes flickered to the crumpled paper. Is that from school? She asked gently. He shrugged. Yay, just another failure. Nothing new. Something about the way he said it, like he'd already accepted that label, hit her. May I see? She asked. Normally, he would have said no. But something in her voice wasn't mocking. It wasn't pity either. It was curious. He picked up the paper and handed it to her. She scanned it quickly. 27%. Wrong formulas. Unfinished problems. But under the mess, she saw hints. Half-correct steps. Good ideas abandoned halfway through. You tried to do this in your head? She asked. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? She shook her head. Not if your brain doesn't work like that. He frowned. What's that supposed to mean? It means maybe you're not stupid, she said plainly. Maybe you're just using the wrong method. He stared at her, not sure if he should feel offended or relieved. What? So you have some secret way of learning? He asked, skeptically. Maya didn't look away. Actually, yes. And right there, in the hallway of a billionaire's house, the line between rich and poor, master and maid's daughter, began to blur. Before Leo could ask more, a voice echoed from downstairs. Leo, come to my office. Now. His stomach dropped. That tone meant only one thing. His dad had read the email. Keep it, Leo told Maya, nodding at the test paper. It's not like I'm going to frame it. She folded it carefully, almost respectfully, and slipped it into her notebook. Then he went downstairs. In the office, Principal Harris was sitting across from Alexander Grant. A folder lay open between them. Leo, sit, his father said, his jaw tight. The principal spoke first. Leonard, your grades are far below what we expect at Harrington Academy. You failed the last 3 major math assessments, underperformed in science, and your overall GPA has dropped significantly. Leo looked at the floor. We've tried extra support, the principal continued. Tutors, study plans, but your test performance hasn't improved. If this continues, we'll have to talk about whether this is the right school for you. That won't be necessary, Alexander interrupted. His voice was calm, too calm. I will make sure my son corrects this path, whatever it takes. The principal nodded. I hope so. We value the Grant family, but academic standards apply to everyone. After he left, the room felt quieter but heavier. Alexander leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Leo, he said, do you understand the position you're putting yourself in? Yes, Leo whispered. Do you? His father pressed. You are my son. People expect excellence from you. Grades are not everything, but they are a sign. Right now, that sign says, wasted potential. Leo clenched his fists. I'm trying. Not hard enough, his father replied instantly. Something snapped. You think this is easy for me? Leo burst out. You think I like being the dumb one? I study and nothing sticks. I sit in those exams and my brain locks up, but all you see are numbers on a page. His father's eyes flashed, surprised to hear this much emotion. You're not dumb, Alexander said slowly. But the world doesn't care how you feel, Leo. It only sees results. He paused. I'm hiring another tutor, he continued. The best in the city. If this doesn't work, we may have to consider another school. Or another path. Another path. Not everyone is cut out for academics, Alexander said, as if he were discussing a business plan. Maybe something less demanding. In that moment, Leo heard something else. You're not good enough for where you are. He left the office feeling like the floor had vanished underneath him. What he didn't know was that, upstairs, Maya had heard enough of the muffled conversation to understand. This wasn't just about grades anymore. This was about identity. About a boy who was about to be written off by everyone who should have been fighting for him. Later that afternoon, when things had quieted down, Leo returned to his room. He expected to be alone. But Maya was there, dusting the bookshelf. She turned when he came in. Hey, she said softly. How did it go? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Great. I'm now officially a disappointment with a capital D. You. She tilted her head. I clean. I study. I survive. Same as always. He dropped onto his chair. Must be nice to not have the world watching your every move. Maya blinked. You think the world watches me? Compared to me? No, he admitted. Sorry. That sounded. I don't know. Forget it. She walked closer, holding the crumpled test he'd given her earlier. It was smooth now, carefully flattened. You asked if I have a secret, she said. A different way of learning. He nodded. I do, she continued. But it's not magic. It's work. Real work. Not the kind you pretend to do with open books and a phone in your hand. He opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. She was right. I don't need another tutor, he muttered. They all talk at me for an hour and leave. It never sticks. I'm not a tutor, she said. I'm more like a translator. Of what? Of information, she replied. From the language of textbooks into the language your brain speaks. He stared at her. It sounded ridiculous. And yet, something about it made his heart beat faster. What does that even mean? He asked. It means, she said quietly, that the problem might not be you. The problem might be the way things have been taught to you. And the secret is learning how you learn. He frowned. So what? You're saying I don't know how to learn? I'm saying nobody ever taught you, she replied. They just threw information at you and expected you to catch all of it. But some people don't catch. They build, piece by piece. That's what I do. That's my secret. There it was. The thing that would change everything. The idea that learning wasn't just about being smart. It was about having a strategy. She took a breath. Leo, I can help you, she said. But only if you're serious. This won't be like your tutors. I won't explain everything for you. I'll show you how to build your own understanding. It will feel slow at first, boring sometimes, but after a while, things will click. He hesitated. His pride whispered, "You're asking the maid's daughter for help?" His fear whispered, "What if it doesn't work? Then you'll know you really are hopeless." But there was also something else, a small, stubborn voice that sounded a bit like his mom. "What if it does work?" He swallowed. "What's the catch?" he asked. Her eyes softened. "You listen. You try. And you don't give up after 2 days because it's too hard. That's the price." He nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Then teach me your secret." And that was the choice that changed everything. They started that same day. "Before we touch the textbook," Maya said, "I need to understand one thing. How do you think?" He blinked. "What?" "When you remember something, what comes to your mind? Words, pictures, sounds." He thought. "I see things. Like little movies. Stories." She smiled. "Good. Then we're going to stop treating math like a list of rules and start treating it like a story." She took his math test and pointed at a problem involving speed, distance, and time. "Right now, this is just symbols to you," she said. "D equals VT blah blah." "Exactly," he said. "Okay, let's turn it into people," she suggested. "Imagine this is about a car racing a bicycle. The car goes this fast, the bike goes that fast, and we want to know when they meet. Tell me the story in your own words." He hesitated, then slowly began speaking. As he talked, she wrote little arrows and stick figures. She turned variables into characters. She drew timelines. Then she circled the numbers. "See," she said, "the formula is just a compressed version of the story. If we understand the story first, the formula makes sense. Your brain likes stories. So we start there." It was different. Nobody had ever done that for him before. Tutors had always started with formulas, rules. "This is the way it is. Memorize it." "Now," she said, "I want you to explain this problem back to me as if you're the teacher." He groaned. "I can't teach. I can't even learn it properly." "Exactly," she replied. "That's why this is powerful. Teaching someone, even badly, forces your brain to organize information. It's my second secret. If you want to learn something deeply, try to teach it." She pushed the paper toward him. "Pretend I know nothing," she said. "Explain." He tried. At first, he stumbled. Got stuck. Mixed up terms. She didn't laugh. She didn't roll her eyes. She just asked questions. "Why did you choose that step? What does this number represent in your story? What are we trying to find?" Slowly, the fog in his brain started thinning. It took an hour to solve 3 problems. Normally, a tutor would have rushed through 15. But for the first time in a long time, Leo felt something he hadn't felt in class for years. Clarity. Over the next few weeks, a new routine formed. On days when Rosa and Maya came to the mansion, Leo would disappear from his friends' group chats and retreat to his room. If his father asked, he'd say he was studying. For once, it was true. But he left out one detail, who he was studying with. Again, Maya would say, tapping a concept on the page, "Explain it back to me." "But I already did it," he'd complain. "And you'll do it again," she'd reply calmly. "Because we're building connections in your brain. Repetition isn't punishment. It's training." They used her 3-part secret method. Turn everything into a story or a picture. Equations became journeys. Historical events became scenes. Biology processes became little animations in his head. Teach it aloud. Leo had to pretend he was the teacher and walk Maya step by step through his reasoning. Break fear of failure. Every time he messed up, she made him pause and ask, "What did I learn from this mistake?" Not, "What's wrong with me?" but "What's missing from my understanding?" At first, it was exhausting. He was used to giving up when things got hard. Now he had someone refusing to let him. "They think you're lazy," she said once, when he was about to slam the textbook shut. "But I don't think so. I think you're just tired of failing. So your brain protects you by pretending not to care. We're going to teach it that effort is actually worth it." "Easy for you to say," he muttered. "You're good at this stuff." She looked at him steadily. "Do you know how many times I've failed?" He shrugged. "More than you," she said quietly. "The difference is that my life doesn't allow me to stop. I either learn from failure, or I stay stuck forever. You had people to cushion your falls. I didn't." That hit him harder than any insult. He started showing up more seriously after that. While all this was happening, someone else was watching, Ethan. At school, he noticed that although Leo's grades were still low on paper, something subtle had changed. Leo raised his hand more. He looked less lost in class. He asked questions that made even the teacher pause and say, "That's a good point." Then came a small test in chemistry. Nothing huge. Just a quiz. But when the teacher handed them back, Leo saw something he hadn't seen in months. A B. Not an A. Not perfect. But solid. His heart raced. He looked up and saw Maya's words in his mind. "We build. Piece by piece." Ethan glanced at his paper, then at Leo's. "B. Heh." Ethan teased. "Did Daddy hire a new tutor? Or are you finally buying answers like everyone else?" "I didn't cheat," Leo said, more firmly than he expected. Ethan smirked. "Relax. I'm joking. But if you ever want a shortcut, you know where to find me." It wasn't really a joke. What Leo didn't know, what most of the school didn't know, was that Ethan had his own little secret business. He got answer keys in advance, sometimes from careless substitutes, sometimes from hacking into teacher accounts, sometimes from other shady methods. He sold them to desperate students whose parents couldn't find out they were failing. To him, Leo was a gold mine waiting to be tapped. Why suffer and risk your reputation when you could pay someone like Ethan to ensure a passing grade? But Leo never bought. He thought about it. Nights before big exams when anxiety chewed at his stomach. But then he thought about Maya. About how she'd look at him if he admitted he'd taken the easy way out. Taking Ethan's shortcut would mean spitting on everything she was trying to teach him. So he refused. And Ethan didn't like being refused. As weeks turned into months, something remarkable happened. Leo's test scores began to climb. Slowly at first. From 27% to 45%. From 45% to 61%. But once his brain started to trust the process, things accelerated. His next math exam, 78%. His science project, one of the top 5 in the class. His history essay, the teacher wrote much improved at the bottom. He wasn't a straight-A student. Not yet. But he wasn't failing anymore. And people noticed. Some classmates said, "Wow, I guess your dad finally paid for the right help." Others muttered, "Must be nice to buy brain cells." Teachers were torn between impressed and suspicious. It's sad, but sometimes when a student who has struggled for a long time suddenly improves, schools don't always ask, "What changed?" They ask, "Did you cheat?" One afternoon, Leo was called to the counselor's office. "Leo," Ms. Rivera said kindly, "we've noticed a significant improvement in your grades." "That's great. What have you been doing differently?" He smiled slightly. "Studying. Properly this time. With another tutor." He hesitated. If he admitted that the maid's daughter was helping him, would that cause trouble for her? For her mom? "Just someone who taught me how to learn better," he answered vaguely. Ms. Rivera nodded, but a small crease appeared between her eyebrows. There was no direct accusation. Not yet. But as exam season approached, Ethan started to spread whispers. "Isn't it interesting," he told people casually, "how Leo went from failing everything to passing almost overnight?" "Maybe he finally hired you," one friend laughed. Ethan shook his head. "If he did, he didn't pay me enough to be honest about it." It was subtle. Little comments here and there. But they planted seeds. And seeds of doubt grow fast in the soil of envy. Back at the mansion, Maya sensed the danger before Leo did. One evening, he practically burst into his room. "Maya, I did it. I got a B+ on my math exam. Mr. Collins even asked me to explain one of my answers in front of the class. She grinned. I knew you would. I actually understood the problems this time, he said, almost in disbelief. The stories, the diagrams, it all just clicked. That's because you built it yourself, she replied. No one can take that away from you. He hesitated. Actually, someone is trying. He told her about Ethan. The jokes, the rumors, the way he smirked whenever teachers praised Leo. As he talked, Maya's expression changed from amused to serious. People like him don't like losing control, she said quietly. If he built his status on being the smartest, or the guy with all the shortcuts, then your improving threatens him. This isn't about him, Leo sighed. It's my life. Exactly, she said. And that's why he might try to mess it up. She looked down at the textbooks, then back at him. A new firmness entered her voice. Okay, she said. Then we need to protect your progress. How? Proof, she answered. If they ever accuse you of cheating, you need to show your work. Not just on the exam, but behind it. Practice logs, notes, patterns of improvement that make sense. She opened her worn notebook and flipped through it. You know how I keep track of my studying? She asked. Topics, dates, how I felt, what I still didn't understand. Yeah, you're going to start doing that too, she said, for every subject, especially math and science. If someone tries to say your scores are suspicious, we'll show them the journey. For the first time, Leo realized something important. Maya wasn't just teaching him how to learn. She was teaching him how to defend his learning. Every study session after that, they did two things. Deep understanding work, stories, diagrams, explanations, evidence building, dated notes, practice quizzes, written reflections like today I finally understood X because. Maya even made him record short voice memos on his phone explaining tough concepts in his own words, with timestamps. This isn't just for school, she said. It's for you. So whenever you feel like you're still the boy who failed everything, you can listen to your own voice proving you've grown. He didn't know it yet, but those records would become the biggest weapon. Ethan watched the growing confidence, the rising scores, the way teachers started saying things like, "Good question, Leo," instead of just "Sit down, Leo." And he made a decision. If Leo wouldn't join him, he would make sure Leo fell. He started preparing long before the big final exam week. First, he quietly hacked into a teacher's email to get a copy of an upcoming math exam. He'd done this before. He was careful. Then, he printed some pages and folded them neatly. Next, he looked at the exam schedule. Finally, he waited. On the morning of the biggest math exam of the time, the air in the classroom was thick with nerves. Everything okay? Maya had texted Leo earlier. Nervous, he replied, but I actually understand most of this stuff now. Good, she wrote back. Breathe. Remember, it's just a story with numbers. Tell it slowly. He smiled and slipped his phone into his locker. Phones weren't allowed in the exam room. Students lined up at their desks, bags placed at the front, only pens and pencils allowed on their tables. But Ethan had other plans. During the chaos of everyone settling in, he accidentally bumped into Leo near the front of the room. Sorry, man, Ethan said with a fake smile. In that split second, his hand slipped into Leo's open bag and pushed a folded sheet of paper under a textbook. A sheet with all the answers to the exam. Then he moved on, whistling softly. The exam began. For the first time, Leo felt, not confident, exactly, but not lost. He turned each problem into a story in his mind. He pictured cars, trains, boxes, amounts of money changing hands. He drew little diagrams in the margins. He heard Maya's voice. What are we trying to find? Tell me the story. 2 hours later, he set down his pen, exhausted but strangely proud. He had no idea what was waiting for him. A week later, they were called to the great hall for an assembly. The entire grade was there. Teachers stood along the sides, serious-faced. The principal took the stage. Students, Principal Harris began. We are addressing a very serious matter today, academic integrity. The mood shifted instantly. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Cheating, someone whispered behind Leo. Leo's stomach tightened. Recently, the principal continued, we detected evidence of exam materials being accessed without authorization and shared among students. Ethan looked around with an expression of innocent curiosity. After thorough investigation, the principal said, we have identified certain irregularities. We will not name all parties publicly, but there is one case that directly affects this grade. He paused. Everyone leaned forward. In the recent math examination, he said slowly, a student was found in possession of answer sheets matching the exam. Those papers were discovered inside the student's bag. Leo's heart stopped. He didn't know why, but dread flooded him. Leonard Grant, the principal said, please come to the front. It felt like the floor had disappeared. All eyes turned to him, some with pity, some with curiosity, some with satisfaction. Ethan watched, face smooth, eyes glittering. Leo walked up, legs shaking. We will discuss details in private, the principal said. But for now, you need to know how serious this is. Cheating in such a manner can lead to immediate suspension or expulsion, regardless of family background or status. Gasps. Rumors spread faster than the words themselves. Of course it was him. I knew it. No way he went from FS to BS without cheating. The narrative had already formed. Later, in the principal's office, the paper was laid out on the desk. It was the printed answer sheet Ethan had slipped into his bag. These were in your possession, Leonard, Principal Harris said, his voice firm. Inside your bag during the exam. I've never seen that before, Leo said, his voice shaking. I didn't bring that. I didn't cheat. Then how did it get there? The principal asked. I don't know, Leo stammered. Someone must have put it there. That's what everyone says, Mr. Collins muttered from the corner. Mr. Collins, the principal warned, but his eyes showed he wasn't far from agreeing. Alexander Grant was there too, his face like stone. Leo, he said quietly, look me in the eye and tell me the truth. Did you cheat? No, Leo whispered. Dad, I swear. I studied. I worked so hard this time. I didn't need to cheat. But the problem with reputation is this. Once people decide who you are, it's hard to convince them otherwise. To the school, he was the failing billionaire's son whose grades suddenly improved. To them, this answer sheet wasn't a suspicious coincidence. It was confirmation of what they secretly suspected all along. We have to take this seriously, the principal said. For now, Leonard is suspended from classes while we investigate further. The rest of his words blurred. Leo felt like he was underwater. He walked out of the office in a haze. To the outside world, it would look like this was the moment he proved everyone right, that he really was a cheat, a failure, a disappointment. But what he didn't know was that somewhere else in the city, a girl with a worn notebook and a sharp mind was already building a plan to fight back. When Leo got home that day, he went straight to his room and slammed the door. Rosa and Maya were in the kitchen when they heard the car pull up, the heavy footsteps, the muffled voices. Rosa looked at her daughter. Something is wrong, she murmured. Maya nodded. I'll go check. She knocked softly on Leo's door. Go away, he muttered. It's me, she said. Maya. Silence. Then, fine. Come in. She walked in and saw him sitting on the floor, back against the bed, eyes red. What happened? He told her everything. The assembly, the answer sheet, the suspension. They think I cheated, he said, voice cracking. And the worst part, no one is surprised. It fits what they already believe about me. Maya listened, her face growing more focused with every word. Where was the answer sheet found? She asked. In my bag, he said bitterly. Apparently that's all they need to ruin my life. Who had access to your bag? He thought. Everyone in the class, I guess. It was at the front of the room. Who bumped into you that morning? She asked quietly. He frowned. What? You told me once that Ethan offered you shortcuts. Did he get close to you before the exam? He thought back. The chaos of students arriving. The bump near the front desk. Yeah, he said slowly. He did. He said sorry and moved on. Maya's eyes narrowed. This isn't just about you, she said. This is about whoever is really running that cheating operation. If they are willing to frame someone to protect themselves, they are dangerous. He laughed miserably. And what are we going to do? You're the maid's daughter. I'm the disappointment. No one listens to people like us. Then we won't ask them to listen first, she said calmly. We'll ask them to look. At what? She opened her bag and pulled out a thick stack of papers and a small USB drive. At this, she replied. Your journey. She laid out his dated notes with her handwriting and his, side by side. The practice quizzes they'd printed from online resources. The reflections he'd written. Today I finally understood, with dates. The voice memos she'd encouraged him to record, all with timestamps weeks before the exam. This is your evidence, she said. Evidence that your improvement is real, not sudden magic. He stared. He remembered doing all of that, but he had never seen it as something that could protect him. And what about the answer sheet? He asked. We can't prove who put it in your bag yet, she said. But we can prove that you didn't need it. Your work before the exam shows that your knowledge was growing. She took a deep breath. I'll come with you to your school, she said. You can't, he said immediately. You're not a student there. Exactly, she answered. I'm just the maid's daughter. Nobody expects me to know anything. That gives me an advantage. I can say things they don't expect from someone like me. And that shock might be the only way to get them to stop and think. He shook his head. If this goes wrong, my dad might fire your mom. Or Weiss. Maya met his eyes. If we do nothing, they'll expel you. They'll brand you a cheater for the rest of your life. And the real cheater keeps winning. Is that better? He swallowed. She was right. Sometimes, the people with the least power on paper are the ones willing to risk the most to defend the truth. Okay, he said. Let's fight. A special disciplinary hearing was scheduled for the next day. Principal Harris, Mr. Collins, the math teacher, Ms. Rivera, the counselor, a school board representative, Alexander Grant, and Leo were present. What they didn't expect was Maya. When Leo and his father arrived at the school, Maya stepped out of the car behind them, clutching her worn notebook. The receptionist frowned. I'm sorry, students and parents only. Alexander opened his mouth to agree, but Leo spoke first. She's my learning coach, he said. She has important information about my study process. The receptionist hesitated. No one had anticipated this. After a brief call to the principal's office, they were allowed in. Inside the conference room, the mood was heavy. On the table in front of the board, the incriminating answer sheet lay like a weapon. Thank you for coming, Principal Harris said stiffly. We hope to resolve this matter quickly. He glanced at Maya, clearly unsure what to make of her presence. Who is this? He asked. Maya straightened her shoulders. My name is Maya. I've been helping Leo with his studies for the past few months. You're his tutor? The board representative asked skeptically. No, sir, she said calmly. I'm the maid's daughter. The words landed like a stone in the room. Even Alexander shifted uncomfortably. And you believe you have something relevant to this case? Mr. Collins asked, disbelief coloring his tone. Yes, she replied. If you'll let me show you. The board members exchanged glances. This was irregular, unorthodox, but curiosity, and the fact that the boy in question was the son of a major donor, won out. Proceed, the principal said. Maya opened a notebook and carefully laid out documents on the table, arranging them in neat chronological order. Feist, she said. These are Leo's notes from 3 months ago. As you can see, the concepts are scattered, incomplete. His understanding was shallow. She slid forward a few pages. Here are his notes from 2 months ago. See how he begins drawing diagrams, turning problems into stories. She moved forward again. These are from last month. His explanations become clearer. He corrects himself. He highlights connections between topics. She then plugged the USB drive into a laptop and opened audio files. This is a voice memo from 4 weeks before the exam, she said. Leo, explaining the concept of relative speed in his own words. The room filled with his own recorded voice, nervous, but clay. So if train A is moving at 40 and train B at 60, their relative speed is 20 when they move in the same direction, but 100 when they move toward each other. She played another, and another. Each one was dated. Each one proved he had been building understanding long before the exam, long before anyone could have accused him of cheating. This isn't the pattern of someone relying on answer sheets, Maya said quietly. This is the pattern of someone learning how to learn. Mr. Collins looked conflicted. Ms. Rivera seemed moved. The board representative scribbled notes. But this still doesn't explain how the answer sheet ended up in his bag, Principal Harris pointed out. Maya nodded. You're right. It doesn't, yet. But I have a question. Did you check anyone else's bags? The principal frowned. We acted on a tip. An anonymous message said Leo had the exam answers. When we checked, we found them. An anonymous message, she repeated. Did it come from a school IP address? A student email? We're not at liberty to disclose that, the board representative said. Of course, she said respectfully. But I want you to think about this. If someone took the risk to steal exam answers, why would they keep them in their own bag during the test? Wouldn't it be much safer to plant them in someone else's and tip off the administration? Silence. That way, she continued, they remove a rival and protect themselves, especially if that rival recently refused to join their shortcut business. You're suggesting someone framed Leo, the principal said slowly. Yes, she said. And I believe that person is a student who has been selling shortcuts for a long time. Ask yourselves, whose grades have been unbelievably perfect for years? Who always seems to know exactly what will be on the test? Who jokes openly about buying answers because he thinks no one will ever suspect him? Ethan's name hung unspoken in the air. Ms. Rivera's eyes widened. We have noticed patterns in some students' grades, she admitted. But we never had proof. Then look for it, Maya said. Her voice was steady, but underneath it was fire. Check device logs, email access, print histories. You checked Leo's bag because of an anonymous tip. Are you willing to check everyone's, or just a billionaire's son who's easy to blame? That question landed hard. It was brave. It was risky. And it was absolutely necessary. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Alexander Grant leaned forward. My son may have struggled, he said, his voice controlled but intense, but I do not believe he is a cheater. Not after seeing this. He gestured to the notes, the memos, the story of effort laid out on the table. If you're going to put my son on trial, he continued, you need to put the system on trial too. Why is it easier to believe that a struggling student suddenly cheated than to believe he learned differently? It was the first time Leo had ever heard his father speak like that. For him, not about him. Principal Harris exhaled. We will reopen this investigation, he said. Examine digital records. Talk to teachers. Until then, Leonard's suspension is lifted. His exam will be held for review, but he may attend classes. That's all we're asking for, Maya said. The next weeks were tense. Rumors swirled. Some students said Leo got away with it because of his dad. Others weren't so sure after word spread that someone had spoken up at the hearing, someone none of them had expected. Because you know how stories work in schools, they travel. Did you hear? The maid's daughter defended him. Wait, he studies with her. Apparently she's a genius. Meanwhile, the school IT department dug into access logs. They found that one particular student account had repeatedly accessed teacher email drafts late at night. Print logs showed multiple copies of exam files being printed from a certain hallway printer right before major tests. Patterns emerged. Too clear to ignore. Ethan Blackwell was called into the office. Unlike Leo, he did not walk in alone. His expensive lawyer parents came with him. At first, he denied everything. But evidence doesn't care about reputations. When confronted with detailed logs, timestamps, and discrepancies in his story, his confident smile began to crack. Within days, it became official. Ethan had been buying and distributing exam answers for years. Multiple students were involved, though most had only bought once or twice out of panic and fear. The school handled them with varying degrees of mercy and discipline. But Ethan, the mastermind, faced the harshest consequences. He was suspended, then ultimately expelled. His perfect academic record? Shattered. His college recommendations? Withdrawn. His friends? Many disappeared as soon as his status did. As for the accusation against Leo, it was dropped publicly. In homeroom, the principal made an announcement. An earlier assumption about a student's misconduct was incorrect, he said. We have since cleared Leonard Grant of all cheating allegations. He did not bring unauthorized materials into the exam. We regret the impact of this misunderstanding. It wasn't a dramatic apology. There were no tears. But sometimes, the most powerful justice is simple and direct. Leo's exam was regraded and counted. His score, an 82%. A solid B. Earned, not bored. When he saw the mark on his paper, his eyes stung. Not because it was perfect, but because it was proof. Proof that the boy who once failed every test could, with the right help and the right secret, write a new story. A year later, things looked very different. Leo was on top of his class. He didn't suddenly turn into some genius with a 4.0 GPA. But he wasn't failing anymore. He'd learned how to learn. He discovered that his brain loved stories and visuals, so he applied that to everything. In history, he turned timelines into comic strips and narratives. In biology, he imagined processes as tiny characters inside a city called the body. In literature, he connected themes to his own life and the people he knew. He still struggled sometimes. Tests still made him nervous. But now, when he stumbled, he didn't think, I'm dumb. He thought, okay, what's missing from my understanding? And that question changed everything. Maya's life changed too. Her outstanding grades, combined with a scholarship program that Alexander quietly helped fund, not as charity, but as recognition of her talent, got her into a reputable university. She studied education and cognitive science, determined to help other students like Leo, kids who were written off as lazy or stupid simply because nobody had shown them how their brains worked. Rosa's job at the mansion changed as well. She wasn't just the help anymore. She was part of the family in all but name. At dinners, Alexander would sometimes ask, Rosa, what do you think? About topics, not just tasks. And one evening, he pulled her aside. Rosa, he said, I can never repay you and your daughter for what you've done for Leo. But I can do two things. First, I want to increase your salary significantly. Second, if you ever want to start your own cleaning business, I'll help you set it up. You've taken care of this house like it's your own. You deserve more than just a paycheck. Rosa cried, not because of the money, though that helped, but because finally, someone was seeing her worth beyond her uniform. As for Leo and Maya, they stayed friends. On weekends, when she came back from university, they would sit in the garden and talk about life, about learning, about how unfair the world could be and how they wanted to change at least a small part of it. One day, as they sat under a tree, Leo said, Do you ever regret sharing your secret with me? She smiled. No, because it was never mine alone. Someone shared it with me first. Who? My mom, she said. Every time I failed something, she'd say, We'll learn how to fall so we can learn how to run. She taught me that learning is a skill, not a gift. I just passed it on. He nodded slowly. Do you realize, he said, that one secret you shared with me probably saved my future? She looked at him. No, you saved your future. I just showed you where the door was. You were the one who walked through it. So, what was the secret? It wasn't some magic hack. It wasn't a rich dad pulling strings. It wasn't cheating, shortcuts, or overnight genius. The secret was this: learning how you learn, and refusing to let other people's labels define your ability. For Leo, it was stories, pictures, teaching aloud, and turning failure into feedback instead of a verdict. For Maya, it was grit, reflection, and the belief that effort plus strategy can beat raw talent when talent has no strategy. For you, maybe the secret is realizing that failing a test doesn't mean you're a failure. That struggling in school doesn't mean you're hopeless. That your brain might need a different approach, not a different person inside it. If you've ever sat in front of a book and felt stupid, if you've ever looked around and thought everyone else gets it except you, if adults have made you feel like a disappointment because you don't fit the standard mold, you're not alone. And you're not broken. You might just need someone like Maya. Someone who says, let's figure out how your brain works. Or maybe you need to be that person for yourself. Because in the end, the biggest difference between Leo and Ethan wasn't who was smarter. It was who was willing to build real understanding, instead of faking it. One lost his reputation, his future at that school, and the trust of everyone around him. The other, he gained something far more valuable than a grade. The knowledge that he could learn, that he wasn't doomed to fail, and that people from different worlds could save each other in ways money never could. If you believe that effort plus the right strategy matters more than being born naturally smart, if you believe that the maid's daughter can be the hero of the story just as much as the billionaire's son, then let this be a reminder. Your story isn't fixed yet. You're still writing it. And sometimes, the secret that changes everything is as simple as this. Don't give up on yourself just because other people gave up on you. If this story hit a nerve for you, if you've ever felt like Leo, or dreamed of being like Maya, take a second to share your thoughts. Drop a comment about a time you failed but kept going, or a person who believed in you when no one else did. And if you want more stories like this, about injustice, redemption, and the quiet heroes the world underestimates, make sure you like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the next story might be the one that finally gives you the words for what you've been feeling all along.